Welcome to Lesson 10 of Module 5 Heredity. In this video, we're going to be looking at some large-scale genetic studies, and we're going to be answering the inquiry question, can population genetic patterns be predicted with any accuracy? So just some meta language for us in this video. Bioinformatics is when we analyze large-scale genetic data. The Human Genome Project is the world's largest collaborative biological project to sequence the human genome. Population genetics is examining variation within and between species, and genetic variation, we've looked at that previously, it's just the difference in the genetic makeup of an organism. So the Human Genome Project was one of the first large-scale genetic projects that was undertaken, and the main goal was the provision of a complete and accurate sequence of the 3 billion DNA base pairs that make up the human genome, and to find all of the estimated 20,000 to 25,000 human genes. They wanted to determine the gene function. It allowed for early detection and then diagnosis of human diseases, and then it was using this information to sequence genes of many organisms. So in population genetics, we need to understand that genetic variation is necessary for species to adapt to challenges. However, variation can be affected by the size of the population, mutations that take place, natural selection, genetic drift, and the diversity of the environment and migration patterns. However, we can use these differences between species to determine the evolutionary history of populations. So we can make the assumption that those with most similar gene pools are more closely related than those with more differences. In conservation management, the principal aim is to avoid extinction of species by applying conservation methods that maintain the maintenance of biodiversity. And to do this properly, it does rely on gathering genetic data to make informed decisions about protecting populations that are endangered or nearing extinction. All of the methods of DNA analysis that are available enable scientists to identify the segments of the genome that are essential for the organism's adaptation to the environment. And from this, they can be used to determine relationships and identify different individuals that can be reintroduced into the population for recovery. Also, undertaking large-scale genetic testing allows us to screen for diseases. So it can help to diagnose diseases and the probability of future offspring inheriting those. And this process is quite quick and accurate. The most common genetic differences are our SNPs, which we've looked at previously. And in New South Wales, the newborn screening program provides potential for some large-scale genomic analysis of newborns. When we're using these genetic tests, we can use them for human evolution. And anthropological genetics is where we combine components of population genetics with historical, archaeological, and linguistic evidence, and we can use these to determine the pathways of human evolution. To do this, we do need mathematical population models, and these allow scientists to interpret genetic diversity and predict the genetic patterns associated with human evolution. And until recently, our understanding of this human evolution was only based on fossil evidence, which we know is incomplete and subject to interpretation. So we do have two models that can be used to explain human migration and how we evolved from a similar species. So we can see there are two. There's the multi-regional, and then there's the out of Africa hypothesis. And we can see that both have divergence here, but we can see in the out of Africa hypothesis, we see that that's where the major divergence happened, and we see where our population evolved further. So we're going to look at both of these in more detail in our lessons. That does conclude lesson 10. Make sure you're in class to undertake some of these large-scale genetic analysis and make sure you can apply this understanding. There is some really cool data happening about the koala and how this will possibly be able to save that species.